All right. Well, welcome to this pilot training on an introduction to Webex. Hopefully you've connected to the audio and are able to hear me. If you're having difficulty connecting to the audio, you can either use the chat box or you can contact IT Training at 88046, and that information is on that screen you see there as well. So Webex has been a part of JMU for quite some time, primarily with the 4VA initiative. It is now available to the entire campus. If you have questions during the training, feel free to use the chat feature. Right now, what you should be seeing is a PowerPoint presentation with the words Webex at JMU on it. If you're not seeing that, you may be in the Quick Start tab on your Webex. You should see 3 tabs there, Quick Start, and then the one on the far right says Robert Morgan Presentation. If you click on that, you should be seeing the PowerPoint that we're displaying. All right, and if you have questions about that, again, you can use the chat box. So the objectives, what we'll look at going over in the next 30 minutes or so, is an overview of Webex, some general system requirements, who has access and what type of access do you have at JMU. We'll talk about hosting a session, which is what I'm doing right now. We'll talk about viewing a session, which is what you are doing. We'll talk about recording a session, and then we'll also look at some productivity tools that are available to you via Webex. A website you might want to be aware of, jmu.edu/computing/Webex. So that has some additional training and information on it, as well as some technical resources that you might want to be aware of. So some basics for participants. First of all, your chat feature. So that's in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. It's an icon on the upper right-hand corner. You can use that to chat with the host or to chat with any of the individuals, and you can do that either privately or publicly so that everyone can see it. You also, if you look next to your name, you'll see a hand. If you were to click on that hand, it raises your hand. It alerts the instructor or the presenter that you have a question or that you need some assistance. And so you can do that at any point if you need some assistance. There's also next to your name a video camera. We see Dr. Beverly has her video camera on, so you can decide whether you want to have your video camera on or off. If you have a webcam, you are free to use that. And if you were teaching a class, your students will be able to do that as well. And we'll talk about that a little here in just a moment. You also have next to your name your microphone. So in this session, and it's an option for your presenters, I muted everyone upon arrival. So if you wanted to use your microphone, there's a muted microphone next to your name. You click on that, it unmutes you, and you would be able to speak using your microphone. But you do have the option when you're setting up a session to mute all of your participants upon arrival, which isn't a bad idea. In case somebody isn't aware their mic is on, you wouldn't hear their conversation or hear their typing on their computer or something like that. So that is an option available to you. One thing you may want to do in this session, and maybe you want to have your participants do it in yours as well, is to maximize their screen. So right in the center of the screen towards the upper right-hand corner, there is an icon. It's 2 arrows. That allows them to maximize their screen. If they were to click on that, it makes the presentation that I'm showing you right now full screen. And so if you wanted to do that today, it might be a little bit easier to see my PowerPoint as we go through this. If you do maximize your screen, though, all those buttons that we just talked about move to different places. So if you click that button, you now have a green tab on the top of your screen, and it says Viewing Robert Morgan's screen. If you were to hover over or click that green button up at the top of the screen, it will bring up some of those options we talked about just a moment ago. Things like chat, audio, raising your hand, all of those have now moved to the top of your screen if you've gone full screen. So what is Webex? Webex is an online conferencing and collaboration tool. It can be used to host meetings. It can be used to host classes. You can share presentation files, chat, do screen shares. You can pass the presenter role back and forth between multiple people. This does not replace Skype for Business, so we will still have Skype for Business on campus. What that's primarily being used for is instant messaging within offices, and so you'll still have that available to you. You may be aware Skype for Business can do some collaboration as well. It can also do some some sharing and some videoing. But Webex is a little bit more of a better quality product, and so Webex doesn't replace Skype for Business, but it'll probably be used for different reasons. There's also been questions about Blackboard Collaborate. Will Webex replace Blackboard Collaborate? At this point, Innovation Services, which was formerly CIT, is going to spend the next semester, maybe the next 2 semesters, doing some research into Webex and if it would be a viable replacement for Blackboard Collaborate. But right now, at least for the next school year, you will have both Webex and Blackboard Collaborate available to you. What they'll be looking at is, can they integrate Webex into Canvas, which is what you have now with Blackboard Collaborate. So you can use Webex for classes, but currently Blackboard Collaborate is the supported video conferencing tool within Canvas, and so that is what Innovation Services will continue to support while they're researching Webex. So what access does JMU have? We have a campus license which is available for all employees and for your graduate assistants. So any faculty staff member does have access to Webex. So currently students can join a session, but they cannot host a session at this time. Eventually that will change. We will get access for students as well to host sessions. It will be smaller sessions. They'll probably be limited to just around 8 other participants. But right now it is just employees, so just faculty and staff, or your graduate assistants. Students can't host, but anyone can attend a session, and that's whether they're faculty, staff, students, or anyone off campus. If you collaborate with folks off campus, they can join your session as well. But in order to host a session, it would have to be a JMU employee. There are 4 Webex centers that we'll look at today: the Meeting Center, Event Center, Training Center, Support Center. What you will probably be using the most is the Meeting Center, and that's what we're in right now. You can host up to 1,000 people in the Meeting Center, and it's really easy to use and allows video sharing and content sharing across devices. You may also want to use the Training Center, and we'll talk about some reasons why the Training Center may work better for your needs, but for the most part, we'll probably expect that people will be hosting sessions in the Meeting Center. You also get with Webex a personal room, and some folks have been using this for virtual office hours, so that is a persistent URL. So you could put your personal room URL into your syllabus, and you could say, you know, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 2 to 4 p.m., I'll be in my virtual room, and anybody could click on that link and join you in your virtual room for virtual office hours. And so we'll see where that is here in just a little bit, but every employee on campus now has a personal room in Webex where they can have office hours or quick meetings or something like that. To access Webex, you will go to jmu.webex.com, and we'll head over there here in just a moment. And you're going to be using your EID and password to get into Webex once you get there. So the Meeting Center I mentioned is where you will probably be doing most of your sessions. And again, this session that you're in today is in the Meeting Center. You can host up to 1,000 people. You can share your files. You can communicate using video or VoIP or over the phone. We do recommend that you and your users use their computer for audio if available. If it's not available, they could call in over the phone, or there's an 800 number or a global call-in number that they could use. But it's recommended that they use calling in via their computer. Is the primary way that we would ask that folks call in. In the Meeting Center, you can share screens, which is what I'm doing now. You can also share documents. You can also upload documents and have them distributed to everyone in the meeting. And we'll talk about some other features you can use with Meeting Center here in just a moment. Some quick system requirements. The first time that you either host or view a Webex, you do have to download the Cisco Webex plugin. So everyone in this meeting today had to download that either this morning, or you've been in a Webex previously and you've downloaded it. It's pretty straightforward. You log in, it says you have to download a plugin, you click to accept it, and it downloads onto your computer, and you only have to do that the first time. Once that plugin is downloaded on your computer, you can host or present without having to download anything additionally. As far as the internet speed goes, the easiest answer is the more features you're using, the better internet speed you will need. So if you're going to have a class of 30 people and you want all of them to have video on and you want all of them to be in HD video, obviously you're going to need some better internet speeds than somebody who's just doing a meeting where the presenter has video on or just doing an audio meeting. So depending on what you're using and how many people you have, and if everyone's going to be on video or not, your needs may differ for internet speeds. Hosts and participants can access this via their mobile device, and so you could use your smartphone, you could use your tablet. Sure. And so we have a question that came in, and we mentioned this a little bit, but a question that came in about what's the difference between Webex, Skype, and Link. So Link and Skype, as of a year or so ago, are now the same thing. So at JMU, we're using Skype for Business, and we'll still continue using that, but that's primarily for instant messaging, and Webex is going to be for more video collaboration. You can use Skype for video collaboration. Webex works a little bit better. It's a little easier to use. So Skype will probably still be around for instant messaging, and Webex will probably be used more for video collaboration tools. Again, you can access it from your mobile device. You could just get the email, click on the link on your mobile phone, and have it open in your web browser on your phone. Webex recommends that you use the Webex app. So it's a free app that you can download, and that's what they would recommend that you use to view or to host a Webex on your phone. But you could, if you wanted to, just click on the link and watch it in your browser, but again, that's not the recommended way. Webex also recommends that you use Wi-Fi if you're viewing it on your mobile device. If you were on your cell service, this is going to eat up a lot of your data minutes, and so you probably want to be on Wi-Fi rather than on cellular if you're doing a Webex on your mobile device. Cisco Webex recommends using an updated browser, so does JMU, so we recommend that you have an updated browser when using Webex, and the same recommendation is used by JMU's IT for doing anything online. And again, you'll log in with your JMU credentials. And there's just a screenshot of the Webex application for your mobile device. All right. So a question also came in. I want to use Webex from home. Do I need to download the plugin on that computer? Yes. So any computer that you use for Webex, you'll have to download the plugin on. Again, you just have to download that plugin once, but it is downloaded locally on your computer. So any computer that you host or view a Webex on, you would need to download the plugin for. And you can do that. In fact, we'd recommend that you do that prior to your session, and I'll show you where you can get that download within the Webex screen, or you can just go into your private room and host a private meeting just with yourself, and it'll download the plugin on your computer as well. So some terms you might want to be aware of is host. Currently, I am the host. The host is the one that initiated the meeting. They also have the highest level of control. You can assign an alternate host, but they must have a JMU EID. And this is a question that was brought up in our last training session. So if you wanted to host with a co-instructor, you could make that other instructor a co-host. And that way, if you weren't able to show up for the class that night, they could open the class up for you and log in. But they have to have a JMU, EIDs and credentials to host the meeting. If they didn't have a JMU EID and credential, you could have someone else who did, like a graduate assistant or something, open the session for you and then turn over the presenter role to that other professor. But whoever is hosting the meeting does have to have a JMU EID and password. The presenter, which is what I'm also serving as today, is the one who's showing you the content. And again, you can pass the presenter around. I could make any of you in this training right now the presenter if we wanted to, and you could show what was on your screen. You could show documentation you were working on, and then we could pass that back and forth. An attendee is what you are right now. So attendee can view the content being shared, and an attendee can become the presenter. They can either request it or I can pass it to them. We did have a question come in. Is it also available on tablets? It is. It's available on mobile devices, tablets, but it is recommended that you download the Webex app if you do it on either a mobile device or a tablet. You could just go directly to the website, but Webex recommends that you download their free app if you're going to do it on a mobile device or a tablet. All right, so to get into Webex, which is where we're headed right now, I'm going to go over to jmu.webex.com. So you should be seeing right now jmu.webex.com, and I've logged in as myself using my EID and password. We talked about these 4 centers: the Meeting Center, Event Center, Training Center, and Support Center. And we also mentioned your personal room. That's under My Webex. And so that's your personal room. That is a persistent link, so it never changes. And you could enter that room at any time. And again, that's what you would probably be using for virtual office hours or just for a quick meeting. If you didn't need to set anything up, just a quick meeting, and you could quickly invite someone into your room. But we're going to come over here to Meeting Center, and I'm going to show you how to set up a meeting if you needed one. So to do that, I'm going to come over to Schedule a Meeting. And I had it set up on a template, which we'll look at in just a moment. But we'll start with just a blank meeting. And the first thing we'll do is give it a name. So this is a test for Webex demo. You can decide if you want a password, and there's benefits to a password or no password. So if I don't put a password, obviously it's a little easier for somebody to get in. They don't have to type a password in. There was not a password on this Webex session today. You didn't put a password in to get into it. The benefits of having a password is that if you don't have a password set up, anybody that has your link can get into your meeting. Also, and we'll talk about how to do this, but if you put your meeting onto the calendar, anybody could just click on that meeting on your calendar or search for the meeting and get into it without your password, which I wasn't concerned about for this meeting, which is why there is not a password on it, but that's up to you. One thing to be aware of, if you have users and you set up a password, an issue that we've seen a few times is that people think they need to put in their JMU EI or JMU EID password here. This is not your JMU password. This is just any password that you make up, and it would be sent out to all of the attendees that you invite. They would type it in and they would get into the session. But again, sometimes your attendees might think that they need to put in their JMU password there, and that is not correct. It's just whatever password you happen to decide upon if you wanted a password. You'll need to choose what date you want the meeting. Let's make ours for next Monday, October 3rd. What time do we want it to start? Let's say 1 p.m. What time zone? How long do we think the meeting is going to last? If you're a Blackboard Collaborate user, there's some ways that you can set up meetings in Collaborate where the session will close after a certain amount of time. That is not the way Webex works. So this is just so your attendees have an idea of how long the meeting is going to last. The session's not going to close, the window's not going to close if you go over that time. So that time is somewhat arbitrary. It's just so your attendees know what's the expected length of this meeting. You would put in your email addresses of anyone that you wanted to invite to the meeting, and then if you put that in there, it's a comma separated or a semicolon separated list. And so you would put that in there and they would get an email that you had set up a meeting, and it would tell them the time, the date, as well as give them a button to click to log in. And then you could also send a copy of the invitation email to yourself. This is probably a way a lot of folks might use it, is maybe they don't put any attendees in there. They just send it to themselves, and then they forward the email via Outlook to whomever they want to invite from their Outlook address. Or you could not put any addresses in there, forward, or have the email sent to yourself and copy and paste that into something like Canvas and say, you know, we're meeting next Monday, here's the link, and put that as a notification in Canvas. So that's the simple way to schedule a meeting. We'll go up here to the Advanced Scheduler and see some additional options that you have. So we have our name of our session, same thing that we had before. Do we want this listed on the public calendar? Again, in JMU's Webex, there will be a list of all of the meetings that are happening on JMU's Webex. If you want that listed, you leave that box checked. If you don't want to be listed on that calendar, you deselect it. You can also decide if you want this deleted from your meetings once it's over, or if you want to keep a list of the meetings that you've hosted in the past. Next, we go to the date and time. This is similar to what we just set up, except we also have options here. How early can somebody get into my meeting? 5, 10, or 15 minutes early. Can the attendees also connect to audio? You'll probably want that on. The estimated duration. Will you send out a reminder? If so, when? And this reminder is only going to work if you put email addresses in for inviting attendees. Obviously, that's not going to work if you forward it to yourself and don't list any attendees there. Is this a reoccurring meeting? Is it a class that you have every week, maybe every Monday for the next 10 weeks you're going to have this class? You could set it up as a reoccurring session. If you use Outlook's reoccurring scheduler, this is very familiar to you. It's identical to what you would see in Outlook. Audio conference. So we recommend that you use Webex audio, and we recommend that your participants, if possible, call in using their computer. But they do have the option of calling into a toll-free number. They also have the option, if they're overseas, of calling into a global phone number. And then this is personal preference. When somebody enters the meeting, do you want it to do nothing? Do you want it to beep? Or do you want them to have to record their name and it will announce it? And again, this is just personal preference. I prefer, if somebody comes in late or leaves early, I prefer for it not to beep on them or not to announce when they're coming or going. But maybe you're in a class and you need to know when someone's entering or leaving. So you do have options here of what happens when somebody comes into a class or leaves a class. Next one down is invite attendees. We talked about that a little bit earlier. This is where you can enter the email addresses of anyone who's coming. You can also, again, send a copy of it to yourself as well. Registration. If you want, you can set up registration on it. So if you need folks to fill out a pre-meeting questionnaire or something, you can set up a registration. If you have registration, you do have to have password turned on. Agenda and welcome. You can put an agenda in there, which will be sent out to the participants. You can also have a welcome screen that they'll see when they show up. So you can type in a welcome message for them. You could also, down here at the bottom, you could automatically share documentation with them. So when they log into the Webex, it'll say the presenter wants you to download a document or a PowerPoint or a PDF, and they would click yes to accept it, and it downloads whatever it is that you wanted to send them. And then we have some meeting options. What type of options do we want to make available to our participants? If we're worried about internet, we could turn off high def or high quality video, but you have those options down there. And then what privileges do you as the attendees have? And then once I review it, if everything's right, I could schedule it here as well, or go back to the quick scheduler. All right. One other thing that you can do is you can save this as a template. So if you have this same meeting every week, or you have it frequently, and you're always inviting these attendees, you're always setting up this meeting the same way, you could save it as a template. And then when you do that, you would give it a name. This is my Webex class. Click Save. And then next week, if I want to choose from my templates over here on the right-hand side, I have my IT 310 class, and it's going to send it out to everyone who's in my IT 310 class. Or I have my Webex class, which is the one that we just set up. But I have all my templates over there, and you could have a different one for each class you're teaching or each session that you're hosting. If you host a departmental meeting or something every week, you could have it set up over there as a template. All right, so that is setting up a meeting. Before we go past there, any questions on setting up a meeting? All right. So I mentioned your personal room, and just so you're aware, that's over here under My Webex. And again, that's a persistent URL. and you can just go in there anytime. There's no setup for that. You would just click enter room, and then you have options of inviting people to that room, or again, you could put the link to that room in something like a syllabus, and they could click on it at any time and get in there during your virtual office hours. Go back to PowerPoint now. So breakout sessions, for those of you who have used Blackboard Collaborate before, you are probably familiar with breakout sessions. This is the one time when you might want to be using the Training Center. So if you want to do a breakout session, which a breakout session allows you to take a larger group of students, break them into smaller groups, and place them into their own room. And the only place that that's available in Webex is through the Training Center. And so what we were just showing was the Meeting Center. There's also the Training Center, which works, it's very similar, but one of the benefits of the Training Center is that you have breakout sessions available to you, and breakout sessions are not available in the Meeting Center. So that might be one reason why you would choose one over the other. You can either manually break out your participants, so you could say, I want student A, B, and C in one class and student X, Y, and Z in the other, or you can ask Webex to do it for you automatically, and it will just randomly separate your students into different classes. You can also manually return them back to the main room, or as a presenter, you can close all of the breakout sessions, and that would automatically pull everyone back to the main room as well. If you had them working on content in the breakout room using the whiteboard, which we'll talk about at the end here, any content that they were working on the whiteboard, you can bring that back into the main session as well. So for example, if you wanted them to break out into small groups and talk about a question, and then come back to the main session and present on what they decided, you could do that. But again, all of that is only available in the Training Center, not in the Meeting Center. So that might be one reason why you would use the Training Center instead of the Meeting Center. Recording a session. So we are recording this session. Sessions can be recorded and stored on Webex. We do recommend that you download the video from Webex once it's ready and store it locally. So there is limited storage space available to us as a campus and also to you individually, and we'll look at that in just a moment. And then the Webexes are recorded as an ARF or a WRF file, which probably isn't used all that often. It's primarily used for things like a Webex, but you could convert that into like an MP4 using a Windows Movie Maker or something like that. Also, Webex has a free player available, so if you send it to somebody and whatever they're using to play video doesn't play ARF or WRF, the Webex does have a free download for a player that does play their file. To look at recording the session, we'll come back over here to Webex. I'll go to my meetings, and I have my recorded meetings over on the left-hand side. I have all of the meetings that I've recorded, how large they are, when I recorded them, how long they are, what format they're in, and then I have the option of either emailing this link to someone, or what we would recommend that you do is you download that file onto your computer, and then you could upload it into something like Canvas, or you could upload it onto the network, but you would download it and then delete it. So each individual has 12 gigs of storage space on Webex, but the university as a whole only has 50 gigs of storage space. And right now they're working on trying to increase that. 50 gigs for an entire university isn't a lot of space, so they're looking to increase that. But right now the recommendation would be that if you record something into Webex, that you would download it and store it either on the network or locally once it has been recorded. It usually takes a little bit of time to get it from being recorded into your list of recordings here. So the one that I did last week, it was about 15 minutes before I could actually see it listed here. So it's not immediate, but it might take a little bit of time in order to see that showing up on your recorded list. All right, so one other thing you might want to be aware of is the productivity tools. You can download these from Webex. This is an add-in to Outlook. It creates buttons in Outlook that allows you to either meet now, which opens up your private room, or you can schedule a meeting in Outlook, and rather than having to go out to jmu.webex.com, you could schedule it from within Outlook, and it would open up your Webex meeting for you and provide anyone that you invited to your meeting with all the information of what to click on and how to get to that meeting. So to do that, you would, I'll just actually go back out here. So I would go to Downloads, and then I have the productivity tools here. And again, that's an add-in that's downloaded onto your computer. IS Security recommends that you only do this on your private computer, so not on like a kiosk or a lab computer or any computer that anyone else would be using, because you do have to log in with your username and password, and that information is stored. So they recommend that you don't do that on a public computer, but you could download the productivity tools onto something like your office computer or laptop, or if you have a home computer that you use, you could put it there as well. All right, so that is all that we have. Questions on anything that you may have? And you could either use the chat or you could unmute yourself and ask your questions. And while folks are typing in their questions, I will mention that lynda.jmu.edu does have some additional training on it, as well as that website we mentioned earlier, jmu.edu/computing/Webex. So a few questions popped up there. Webex seems to be set up for personal use. What about departmental usages? It's for either, yeah. So a lot of companies will use Webex for meetings. And so, for example, if you're meeting with people across campus and you don't want everyone to come together into one room, it's too far away, you could just set up a virtual meeting. There are classes that are being taught in Webex. Again, you can have up to 1,000 people in it. So you could do departmental meetings in Webex. You could host classes in Webex. Webex is also where a lot of things like webinars are done. If you've ever attended a webinar, there's a chance it was in something like a Webex. So not necessarily just personal meetings, but classes could be in Webex, or departmental-wide meetings, or if you're collaborating with people at different universities and you want to be able to communicate via video, you could meet up with 3 or 4 people from different universities. In fact, there was a department in the last meeting that said they have folks from 13 different universities and they meet together once a month, and they're going to do that now via Webex. So everyone will just log on to their computer and they'll meet virtually rather than having to secure a location that everyone could go to. All right. There's a few other questions in there. Can I access this recording later to remind myself how to do this? Yes. We are going to host this recording probably on our website, and we'll send out a link to everyone who attended this meeting of where we're going to host that. But we will host this recording on probably the IT training website once we have that done. So we have a few other questions in there. Hosting a meeting for your department or for external meetings. Yeah, you could host departmental meetings in it. You could host external meetings. You don't have to have a JMU EID and password to get into Webex. So if you do work with external vendors, then they don't need, all they need is the link to get in, unless you set up a password, and then they need the link and the password that you created. But no one needs a JMU EID or password to get into Webex as a attendee. They do need it in order to host a session, which is what I'm doing. But for example, all of you today, it wouldn't matter if none of you worked at JMU, all of you would be allowed in to see my Webex as long as you have the link. So you do not have to be a JMU employee. You don't have to have any association to JMU at all in order to view a Webex. The only thing that you would need in order to, only thing you would need as far as JMU and Webex is if you wanted to host it, you have to be a JMU employee. Does the meeting end when the time is up? No. So again, that time that we set up is just arbitrary. That's just a general guide for the learners. It's not like Blackboard Collaborate where the meeting is cut off once that time goes up. Accessibility for visual or hearing impaired. I actually spoke with Christina Wolf over in Office of Disability Services just the other day about that question. So Webex has a few things. Let me go back to Webex just for a minute. So Webex has a few things built into it for accessibility, and we'll take a look at that real quick. So down here you have an option of enabling closed captioning. Before we get into that real quick, what Christina said is that if you have somebody in your class who needs closed captioning, they actually have somebody at JMU who, when they've done this before with online classes, where they will attend the class remotely via the link, and then they have software that they're typing the notes into, and the user has that software open on their computer as well, and they're able to view those closed captions. So that's the way ODS is handling that currently. I did mention to her that Webex has that very similar features built into it. So you could, if you wanted to, turn on enable closed captioning, and then you could have someone like a student from ODS who would be typing in notes, and they actually appear in Webex. So what ODS does currently is they have someone typing those notes and they display on a separate device that the student has, but you could also have them showing up in Webex if you wanted to. Now that is manual, it's not automatic where Webex is using voice to text or something like that. You would have to have somebody transcribing the notes of your meeting into either that software that ODS has or into Webex, but Webex does have options for enabling closed captioning. All right, any other questions out there? All right, well, I'll stick around for a few more minutes in case there are any other questions. But one other thing I'll show you here is if I stop sharing my screen, another option that you have is your whiteboard. And again, if you're familiar with Blackboard Collaborate, you've seen some of this before as well. But you do have a whiteboard feature similar to what you had on Blackboard Collaborate, where folks can type messages on the whiteboard. Or you can, if you're in breakout rooms, they could be each working on that. So each student in the breakout room could be typing their own messages or coming up with some information. And so that's available to you, very similar to the way it was in Blackboard Collaborate. And somebody asked about, so I've muted the participants. Can you show how to adjust participant levels of collaboration? So I have an option. I don't think you can see it on your screen, but up at the top of my screen, I have something that says participants, and then it's a drop down, and I choose mute on entry. And then I also have the availability, it's a little bit difficult to show my view to you, but I have the availability on all of you over on the right-hand side where you're seeing all of the participants listed. I have that as well, but I have the ability as the presenter and the host to turn off your microphone, to turn it back on. I can't turn your camera on and off, but your microphone I could turn on and off if I wanted to. And then up at the top, I have a drop down of participants, and I can say mute everyone on entry. I could say mute everyone, and I could also say unmute everyone if I wanted to. And then along with that, I also have the option of passing the presenter role to anyone. So if we wanted to, I could make anyone else a presenter, or they could request to become the presenter as well. All right. So that is all we have. And again, we'll make this recording available. We'll send that out to everyone who attended these past few sessions. We have one more, or our next session available will be on October 20th, which is a Thursday. It's the third Thursday at 3 p.m., if that helps you remember it. But if you have somebody else in your department who might be interested in Webex, we'll have another session just like this one on October 20th at 3 p.m. The third Thursday at 3 is when we'll host that next session. They can sign up in My Madison at, the class number is IT 310, or they could just send us an email over here at IT Training, and we can get them signed up as well. But that session will be on October 20th. All right, and if there's nothing else, so you should have on your screen, you can either, two ways you can get out of the meeting. You can click the X in the upper right, or you can go back to the Quick Start tab and say Leave Meeting. To do that, you may need to close your full view. So up at the top, you'll click on that green button and then say Return, and then go to the Quick Start and Leave Meeting, or you can just exit out of it as well, and that will work.